It started in the attic. Dust. Boxes stacked high. I was looking for photo albums. Instead, I found a locked trunk. Old. Heavy. Rust on the hinges. My father's initials carved on top. J.R. He'd been dead 10 years. I never touched his things. But that night, I opened it. Inside, a jacket. Stiff with age. Brown stains on the cuffs. I touched it. My fingers came back dry, but I knew what it was. Blood. Next, a pistol. Wrapped in cloth. Cold metal still oiled. I checked the chamber. Loaded. At the bottom, a folded newspaper. Headline: Local man disappears, 1975. I stared. The face on the photo was familiar. Too familiar. I flipped the paper. Inside, a photo of my father, shaking hands with the same man. My throat tightened. My heart pounded. I whispered to the dark, "Oh my God." Suddenly I remembered. The whispers when I was a kid. Neighbors saying he was dangerous. Late nights, he came home with dirt on his boots. And the one thing he always told me, never go in the attic. I sat there on the floor. Jacket, gun, newspaper. 40 years of silence staring back at me. My father didn't just live a lie. He buried one. And now, it was mine to carry. I couldn't sleep that night. The trunk sat in the corner of my bedroom. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the gun, the blood on the jacket, the headline. At dawn, I spread everything on the table, one by one, evidence of a past I never knew. The newspaper first. Local man disappears, 1975. Name: Robert Clay. Age: 32. Last seen leaving Miller's Tavern. No body. No suspects. Case unsolved. I flipped the page again. There was a small note in pencil. A date: July 12, 1975. The same night my father told my mother he was working late. I moved to the jacket. Checked the inside pocket. Found a torn receipt. Bar name smudged. But I could read. Miller's. The same tavern. My chest tightened. I remembered being a kid. I asked Dad once why he came home so late that summer. He snapped at me. "Mind your business, boy." It was the only time he ever raised his voice. I picked up the gun. Serial number scratched out. Filed down. Deliberate. Professional. Next, I dug deeper into the trunk. More papers. Notes in his handwriting. Addresses. Names. One crossed out in red. I recognized one. A neighbor. Old Man Harris. He used to warn me when I was little. "Your father ain't who you think he is." I thought he was crazy. He died years ago. I sat back, heart racing. This wasn't just coincidence. This was a trail. A trail my father left behind. The man I grew up with. The man who taught me to fish, to work, to fight. Might have killed someone. And hid it for 40 years. I whispered into the empty room. "What else did you do, Dad?" I couldn't keep it in. The box. The gun. The blood. The newspaper. By Sunday, I drove to my sister's house. Mary, 5 years younger, still called him the greatest man who ever lived. She welcomed me in. Coffee already on. Photos of Dad everywhere on her walls. Him smiling, fishing rod in hand, holding us as kids. I sat down at her table, hands shaking. She noticed. "What's wrong with you?" I looked her straight in the eyes. "Mary, Dad wasn't who we thought he was." She frowned. "Don't start." I pulled out the newspaper clipping, slid it across the table. She glanced, rolled her eyes. "So what? Some guy missing in the 70s? "Not some guy. Robert Clay. Disappeared the same night Dad said he was working late." She laughed bitterly. "Are you drunk?" I leaned closer. I found Dad's trunk. A jacket with blood. A gun. Notes. Receipts from Miller's Tavern. The same place Clay was last seen. Her face dropped. For a second, then hardened. "No, I don't believe you. I'm telling you the truth." "You're crazy," she snapped. "Dad was strict, sure, but he wasn't a murderer." I pulled out the photo. Dad shaking hands with Robert Clay. Her eyes lingered. Then she shoved it back. "Coincidence," she muttered. "Don't you dare come in here and spit on his name." "Mary," I whispered. "He killed him. He hid it for 40 years." Her hand slammed the table. "Stop." The room shook with her voice. "You always hated him more than I did. You always saw the bad in him. Now he's gone, And you want to drag him through the mud? Why? To make yourself feel better? My throat tightened. Her eyes filled with tears. He was our father, she said, voice cracking. The only father we had. I whispered back. Maybe not the one we needed. She stood, pointed at the door. Get out. And don't bring this poison here again. I stood too, my chest heavy, my hands trembling. As I left, she shouted after me. Dad was a good man, and nothing you say will ever change that. The door slammed. I walked to my car, sat behind the wheel, the newspaper on the seat beside me, the gun in the trunk of my car. Her words rang in my head, but so did his. Never go in the attic. I drove home in silence, but the past wouldn't stay quiet. Memories I buried came rushing back. I was 8, summer of '75. I woke up one night to voices downstairs. Mom crying, Dad whispering, harsh and low. I crept to the top of the stairs, saw him scrubbing his hands at the sink. Dark water running down the drain. Mom asked, what did you do? He snapped, nothing you need to know. Another time, I was 12. A knock on the door late at night. 2 policemen. They asked if Dad had been at Miller's Tavern. He smiled, calm, just for a drink. Left early. They left, but after the door closed, his face turned stone. He locked the door, turned to me. Don't ever talk to cops. About anything. I remembered the smell. That summer. His boots caked in mud. A shovel in the shed, still wet. I asked what he'd been digging. He stared at me too long, then said, just burying garbage. I remembered his temper. A neighbor once joked about Robert Clay's disappearance. Dad's face changed. Cold. Hard. He said, some men disappear because they deserve to. The neighbor never came back around. And Mary never saw it. Or maybe she refused to. He was softer with her. Gentle. She got the smiles. I got the warnings. Now it all made sense. The nights he came home late. The blood on his shirt he said was from hunting. The way he always kept the attic locked. The way he never let me touch his trunk. I pulled the car over, hands gripping the wheel, breath shaking. I whispered. All the signs were there. I just never wanted to see them. The truth wasn't new. It had been waiting for me all my life. I just finally opened the door. I couldn't let it go. Not after the trunk. Not after the flashbacks. Not after Mary called me a liar. I went back to the attic. Same trunk. Same smell of dust and old wood. But this time, I searched deeper. I pulled out the jacket again. Turned the pockets inside out. A small folded paper slipped free. Yellowed. Brittle. I unfolded it with shaking hands. It was a police report. Dated July 15th, 1975. Case, Robert Clay. Notes. Last seen arguing with John R. at Miller's Tavern. John R., my father. My stomach dropped. I kept reading. Witness statement attached. Bartender's words. They went outside. Only John came back. I dropped the paper. My hands trembling. The floor spun. But there was more. Another envelope at the bottom of the trunk. Unmarked. I tore it open. Inside. A wallet. Worn leather. I opened it. ID card. Robert Clay. His face staring back at me. I nearly fell backward. My father had kept the man's wallet. Why? A trophy? A reminder? Proof of what he'd done. I shoved it aside. Pulled out another bundle. Old photographs. Most were family shots. Vacations. Birthdays. But in the middle, a photo I had never seen before. My father, standing in the woods, shovel in hand, his boots covered in mud, his face blank, no smile. Behind him, a mound of dirt, fresh, uneven. I felt the blood drain from my face. I whispered into the empty attic. Oh my God, he buried him. I sank to the floor, the photo shaking in my hands. The report, the wallet, the gun, the blood. It was no longer suspicion, no longer whispers, no longer doubts. It was truth. My father had murdered Robert Clay, and I was holding the evidence in my hands. I spread everything on the table. The wallet, the police report, the photo, the gun, pieces of a life I thought I knew. The lamp flickered. Shadows stretched across the walls. My own reflection stared at me in the window. Tired, broken, shaking. If I took this to the police, it would reopen the case. Headlines. Respected veteran linked to 1975 murder. Our family name dragged through the dirt. Mary humiliated. Mom's memory destroyed. If I stayed silent, the truth would rot with me. The victim's family would never know. Justice buried forever. I poured whiskey into a glass. Hands trembling so bad, half of it spilled. I swallowed anyway. It burned my throat, but not as much as the truth burned inside me. I heard Dad's voice in my head. Low, firm, family first. Always protect the family. I slammed the glass on the table. No, you don't get to tell me that anymore. I stood, paced the room, every step heavier, every thought louder. If I spoke, Mary would hate me forever. She already thought I was crazy. If she knew I had proof, she'd call me a traitor. If I stayed quiet, I'd be no better than him, carrying his lie, living his crime, pretending our father was the man she believed he was. My head pounded. I gripped the table. The photo of Dad in the woods stared back at me, his eyes cold, unblinking. I whispered to it. Why? Why did you do it? And why did you leave it all for me to find? Tears stung my eyes. I pressed my fists to my forehead. The weight was crushing. No matter what I chose, someone would be destroyed. If I told the truth, I'd lose my sister. If I hid the truth, I'd lose myself. And there was no middle ground. The clock ticked louder. Every second a hammer. Every second pushing me toward a choice I didn't want to make. I sank into the chair, covered my face with my hands, and whispered into the dark. What do I do? But no answer came. Only silence. And the weight of a murder 40 years old, now resting on me. Morning came gray. Rain tapped on the windows. I hadn't slept. The table was still covered with evidence. The gun, the wallet, the police report, the photo of Dad with the shovel. I stared at them until the decision was clear. I couldn't carry this alone. Not anymore. I picked up the phone, dialed Mary. She answered quick, her voice sharp. What do you want? I need to see you, I said. It's important. Silence. Then a sigh. Fine. 10 minutes. I gathered the evidence, packed it in a box, drove through the rain. Every streetlight flickered like a warning. At her house, she opened the door, arms folded, face cold. You've got 5 minutes. I stepped inside, set the box on the table, opened it. She frowned. What is this? I pulled out the police report. Read it. She scanned the page. Her face paled. This doesn't prove anything. Next, the wallet. I placed it in front of her. She picked it up, opened it. Her hands shook. Robert Clay, she whispered. Her lips trembled. Why would Dad have this? I didn't answer. I slid the photo across. Dad, in the woods, shovel in hand, a mound of dirt behind him. Mary's breath caught. Her eyes filled with tears. No, that's not what it looks like. I leaned forward. It's exactly what it looks like. She shook her head violently. No, he was a good man. He loved us. He loved us. I snapped. He lied to us. For 40 years, Mary. He killed Robert Clay. The proof is right here. She covered her face, sobbing, her body shaking. No, please no. I whispered. I'm sorry, but you needed to know. She lowered her hands, tears streaming, her voice barely a whisper. What are you going to do? I looked at the box, at the gun, at the photo, at the truth that would never go away. I'm going to the police, I said, my voice steady. Dad doesn't deserve our silence anymore. Her face broke. She sobbed louder, but she didn't stop me. I stood, picked up the box, walked to the door. As I stepped outside, rain poured harder, cold, heavy, each drop like judgment. I looked up at the gray sky and whispered, It's over, Dad. Finally, it's over. The police station smelled of stale coffee and rain-soaked uniforms. I stood at the front desk. The box in my arms felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. The officer looked up. Can I help you? I nodded. Yes, I need to report a murder. His pen froze. He stared. I set the box on the counter, opened it. Gun, wallet, report, photo. The room went still. Another officer approached. Where did you get this? I swallowed hard. My father's attic. He's been dead 10 years. But 40 years ago, he killed Robert Clay. They exchanged looks, took the box, pulled on gloves, started bagging everything. One officer said, "This is enough to reopen the case." My chest tightened. The words felt like knives. Reopen the case. Reopen my family. Hours passed in interviews. Questions. Details. Every memory dragged out of me like broken glass. By the time I left, night had fallen. Rain had stopped. The air felt heavy. I drove straight to Mary's. She opened the door, eyes red, face pale. "You told them," she whispered. I nodded, tears in my eyes. I had to. Her voice cracked. "You destroyed him. His memory. Everything." I stepped closer. "No, Mary. He destroyed it himself. I just refused to hide it." She shook her head, backed away. "You're not my brother anymore." The door slammed in my face. I stood there, alone, her words echoing in the dark. I drove home, sat at the kitchen table, the silence crushing. The chair across from me empty. On the wall hung Dad's photo. Him smiling, arm around Mom. Happy, innocent, a lie. I pulled it down, stared at it for a long time, then placed it face down. The truth had set me free, but it had cost me my sister. It had cost me peace. It had cost me everything. I whispered into the empty room. The truth doesn't heal. The truth destroys. And for the first time in 40 years, I realized my father had left me his curse.